Oh, the mistake, and McBreen's clean through on goal here to win it. What a miss from Daniel McBreen.
Farken Dogshit.
G'day everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of A-League Off Air. Before we get started today, I wanted to have a little chat about the concept of peak A-League, because I think we all love peak A-League, but I think we need to just set perhaps some boundaries as to what is peak A-League, because everyone likes the quirkiness of the league and the things that go off, the things that happen, the things that we don't see week in, week out in the English Premier League. The most recent one was the sprinklers going off in Perth last week, and everyone going, quite rightly, you know, a little bit of peak A-League here. We've got a little bit of, just a little touch of peak A-League. And that's great. But what I didn't like is the reaction where people take peak A-League to mean it's all just a little bit shit here. And this wouldn't happen in fucking Sunday League, in England, sprinklers coming on. All you have to do, people, is just do a Google search and say, sprinklers, interrupt football match, and you'll find Bayern Munich, fucking English Premier League, Champions League. It's happened all over the world the whole time. All it means is that we do it a little bit better here because we get a Bulgarian international to go and clean his shoes while the sprinklers are on. Whereas all the fucking Bayern Munich players are running out of the way, not trying to not get wet. Okay? That's peak A-League. Last season, and this is the other thing that brought up the anger in me, was after the 3 yellow cards and the spot fixing with the lads from MacArthur. We had a couple of people, voices in the game, coming out and saying, I don't know if MacArthur can survive this. This is peak A-League. We don't see this in other countries. Literally 3 fucking days later, Lucas Paqueta of West Ham got done for the same thing in the Premier League. It happens fucking everywhere. We just do it at our level. We're part of the big thing, okay? There's corruption in European football. There's fucking Barcelona. They've picked up 6 points in the last 2 months because they've stopped paying the 3 million to the head of the referees every season, which they got fucked over for. They got no money. They can't sign any players. It's peak Liga, okay? If that's what you want to call it, but you don't, because everyone fucking loves Barcelona. I have a personal thing with Barcelona, okay? Let's not go there. But the point is, peak A-League is the fact that we have 4 teams covered by 3 points at the midway point of the season. We have Noah Bodic scoring bombs. We have last-minute turnarounds. Celebrate what is peak A-League, okay, people? Let's lose the this is embarrassing peak A-League. Let's get in the embracing, this is full-on peak A-League. And to finish then, on my little rant, I might pull out, I was very tempted to start with my story about how the Champions League is fucking always rigged and how I have near proof of a team that bought the Champions League, which I might yet say, but just to prove a point. But what I will finish with is a quote, as always, from Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, a song that isn't really very famous. It's called Babe, I'm on Fire. And these are a few of the lyrics. It goes for about 20 minutes, this song. And at one point, the lyrics are, the sports commentator says it. The old alligator says it. The tennis pro with her racket. The loon in the straitjacket. The proud kangaroo. The koala. The echidna. The platypus too. Everybody says it. Babe, I'm on fire. That's the fucking A-League, people. And last weekend, the A-League was on fire. Once again, welcome to A-League Off Air. Daniel McBreen, are you peaking?
Well, you're a cranky fucker today, aren't you? I'm all right. I got some fucking personal time yesterday for a free day and caught up with some people.
I know, so no games.
That was decent. Yeah. No football at all. Only had a meeting in the morning with the guy that joined us today that I speak to him more than my wife at the moment. But no, it was a good weekend. I've done a bit of a James Meredith. I haven't watched all the games this weekend, so when we get to the certain game, I'll let you guys talk about it.
So we're going to have a good show.
Yeah, so I can talk some shit and not know what happened on the weekend, but yeah. All good, man. All good.
The best thing, and I'm actually in a good mood today because with all these midweek matches, which we've very fortuitously decided not to ever talk about, is basically the fact that we've only got 5 games again.
I know.
So we can rattle through it. We'll have a quick little look ahead to Macarthur playing the Nooks this evening out in Campbelltown. But before we go any further, we do have a guest. I'll just swing back one more time for the people that lay shit on the league. Okay, a couple of them are big names in Australian football. Cranky cunt today, CC, and we cast a pretty wide net, as you're probably about to find out with our guests, who we invite onto the show. And I've reached out to a few big names of people that are prominent in social media and saying this is no good and this is, the league's heading nowhere, the A-League's in trouble, all this sort of stuff. And I said, look, would you like to come on the show? And on more than one occasion, these people have said, oh, I don't follow it actually. I'm pretty much just Premier League or Champions League now.
You're right.
So I wouldn't come on because I don't want to embarrass myself by actually talking about the football matches. I just want to, stand back here and throw some shit at it from a distance.
Robbie, they hear that quite often when you actually start to scratch the surface on people who are giving shit to the league. They go, oh, I don't actually watch it. So it's like, well, shut the fuck up then. Yeah. Go and watch it and actually see that it's quite entertaining. And it's generally a very tight race for the league or for the finals or whatever it is. So either watch it or shut the fuck up.
Exactly. I went through it. I went through midway point of all the big European leagues at the moment. 6 points between first and second in the EPL. There's fucking about 40 points between first and fourth in Spain and Germany and Italy and France. Inter won this morning, so they've closed the gap on Napoli. That's about it. There's about 150 points between first and second in Scotland. And here we are in the A-League with, if Macarthur win tonight, we'll have like the top 5, I think, covered by 3 points.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is not bad. So let's, it's not the best league in the world. Fuck it. It's peak for the right reasons. Because actually, we're doing it better than a lot of other leagues in the world in terms of competition.
Right. That's right.
Anyway, CC is done for today. Let's get happy. Because we have a very special guest in a former Newcastle and current Newcastle legend, I guess. A man that also...
Use that term lightly. Yeah.
Well, he's still getting noticed in cafes around Newcastle.
Yeah, they just got called me Ruben Zadkovich.
And it's Ruben Zadkovich's very own Newcastle lookalike, his doppelganger, who we've got on. Former Adelaide man as well. We've brought him on because we want to improve our metrics in Malaysia, where he's big still. It's Daniel McBreen's old mate, Taylor Regan. Taylor, welcome on board. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. First things first, I will not be showing me kids this podcast. I've never heard so much swearing in the opening 4 minutes of a podcast in my entire life. But
Macca hasn't started yet.
Yeah, and CC's quite an ironic name to have it on a podcast when Daniel McBreen's on it, because after coaching with him for the last 2 years, I tell you what, there is one cranky cunt, and it's probably not you, big fella. I think it might be McBreen.
Well, I'm always cranky when I've got to deal with you every fucking day, so... it's not the kids that get me
what
cranky.
What time is it? 5 o'clock in the morning. You boys are hitting the football pitch as well.
Sometimes
it feels like it.
If ever you've got an excuse to be a CC.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. No, thanks for having me, guys. I like your little point about people that are quick to critique the league yet don't watch it. That's the world we live in, unfortunately, right? I reckon one of the best things about retiring from football is not having to read all these keyboard warriors. Your name slowly starts to dry up. But I was only talking about it with someone yesterday. I can't remember who it was. It was like, you got all these haters, but I don't reckon I've ever had, and correct me if I'm wrong, Macca, and yourself probably included, have you ever had anyone come up to you, to your face, and say one negative thing? I've never had it. And
because I don't
again,
have any
I'm not
haters,
sure.
Riggs. I've only got people who
Yeah.
who love me because I was a good guy.
Yeah, of
I
course.
wasn't the bad guy like you. You were the fucking
Yeah.
pantomime villain. I was
Yeah,
only
here we
showing
go.
Robbie your
Here we
Mitch
go.
Austin tackle the other day, saying how bad it was.
It wasn't a tackle. It was, it wasn't a tackle. Dribble with
Did you
your
hurt your
eyes up.
shoulder in that one?
No. His mum sent me a message on Twitter telling me I was a fucking grub and I should play rugby league. I'll never forget it. Anyway, poor Mitch.
That was a good challenge.
That was. You can find that on YouTube, people, if you want. It's Macca was telling me about it, and I was expecting to see something, like gruesome and spectacular and spinning through the air and everything. It's fucking actually far more Russian ultra fighting sort of thing. Like people just
Running
brick
into each
wall
other. Yeah.
drop.
Well, it's the original rivalry, right? Which we saw again the other night.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
To be
exactly.
fair, the
Fortunately-
commentator said it at the time. He said Taylor Regan just stands his ground, really.
yeah.
Anyway,
You've watched it a few times, haven't you, Dan?
I've watched it a couple
you
of
even know
times
what
the other day.
commentators
He loves
say.
it. He loves it.
Hey?
I've re-commentated it. We're about to play it with my commentary over the top.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
All right, that's another great thing that was peak A-League, which I was going to say in the intro, was Ethan Alagich scoring the winner in the original rivalry. Because how often do you get now in world football a local kid scoring the winner in the biggest match? I mean, it does happen. It does happen occasionally, like it happens here. I'm not saying that we're any better. I'm just saying we're not any shitter. It happens here, and that was great.
The
to
photo
see.
they put out of him
Ethan Alagich.
as a kid on the field with his dad in his Adelaide shirt, and we'll get to this, but that was epic. They had a photo of him celebrating, tapping the badge, and then they split it, and there was a photo of him on the field looking up at his dad in his little Adelaide kit. That was fucking epic. That was good. They did well there. That's good. We're starting to
stuff.
see these kids come through that actually have followed clubs. from
Exactly,
being
but that's
young.
what we're seeing everywhere as well. Adelaide are pretty good at it, actually. Adelaide have had a bunch.
Yeah.
Let's start then.
Right.
Taylor, the idea is we go through it game by game. Hopefully Macca's caught a bit of the action. I told him not to worry too much about Western United versus Newcastle because he had a big go at Newcastle last week.
Yeah, well, it's coming again.
And this was just more of the same.
Well,
I think Western United. Well, I'll start this one because I called this one. First of all, Ironbark Field. It is not an easy place to travel to, and I'm talking about the fans. First of all, to get out there to this ground, and it's not an easy place to travel as a team because the wind. And I don't know if it's every day this wind, because there are still some piles of dirt everywhere that if the wind was like this every day should have all blown away. But they're still there where all the construction's going to be at some point. It looks a bit like Cooper Pedy when you're commentating in the background. You see all these piles of dirt where people are digging for opals or something in the background. Basically, Newcastle couldn't deal with the wind. Every single pass in the first half they hit just ran straight out for a goal kick. Apart from maybe the first 2 minutes when it took Western United a little bit of time to get into the game, it was one-way traffic into the wind in that first half. Western United far too good. Danzaki, about this goal, perhaps he opened the scoring in the 17th minute, and it was just a question of being first to the ball every time. Newcastle were second to every ball in the box as well. People talk about attacking and defending in the boxes, the two areas where you've got to be on top. And Western United in these areas were first to the ball every time. Noah Botic, completely unmarked for the headed goal, for the second one. It was similar to what he did the week before. And then the third goal in the second half was just an absolute stunning strike that gave poor old Ryan Scott, looked like he had no chance. It was certainly travelling. And then LA Rose got a goal back for Newcastle. And it looked, honestly, at this moment, well, maybe just before Botic's goal, which you could say almost came against the run of play for that 10-minute period at the start of the second half. Newcastle looked like they were going to perhaps produce something and make a game of it, but it didn't happen even with Rose's goal. And that was about it. The whole thing sort of just petered out, but Western United too strong. Taylor, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, I think psychologically the game was done at halftime. Western United killed them. They had more energy. They're just on a roll, and I'm waiting for the roll to, well, I've been waiting for it to stop, to be honest. I look at their team on paper. It's strong, but there's a lot of kids out there, and it is very hard to continue this role when you've got so much youth in your team. And I come back to probably the Mariners days, when they started to have success, and you sprinkled your Matt Ryans, your Rogic's, your boys like that, your Sainsbury, but they had a senior spine that held the place together. I look at the spine at Western United. It's not super experienced. You have Japanese boy at the back, Imai, that's obviously experienced, but again, he's an import. It's a little bit different. You've got Ibasuki up front, experienced. Again, it's an import. Garuccio's been around forever, but he's a left fullback. He's not really through that spine. But look, I'm friends with him and I'm giving him a plug, but Thurgate is just everywhere. And his work rate and the amount of movement he does just allows you Grimaldis and that to be free, and Bodic and these boys. And they're a very good side. And they showed that in the first half. Yeah, the wind hurt the Jets in patches, but the Jets they just never came out of the blocks. Second half, they came good, but at 3-0, Lockie Rose has got all the energy in the world, but I don't think it was ever going to come back. I think those Imai and those boys, they just know how to strangle the game. And look, the Jets keep the ball. Their passing accuracy and all that is phenomenal. Robbie Stanton's got a real philosophy and a way he wants to play. He doesn't have a budget by the look of it. He needs someone to create. He's moved Grozos to the middle at the back to try and get him on the ball, which allows him to have Timmins, who's doing well, and Bayless, but they're all box-to-box hard-working midfielders, which is what people of this area love to see. But they also love a Daniel Pena or Milton Rodriguez or someone with a little bit of spark. And unfortunately, without the pay packet in their back pocket, they probably can't really get someone. So they need to try and somehow change their identity to find a way to create some more goals, because we've got the youth here in Newcastle now. We just don't have the experience like what I just spoke about with Western United.
Well, I was happy to see Will Dobson get brought on and get half a game. I did actually go and watch some of this one as well, Robbie, even though you told me not to bother.
Dobson doubled his A-League minutes.
Yeah, so
Will Dobson
what
coming
Reed's
on in the
getting
second
onto
half.
there is that if you don't have a budget, then the Newcastle people, and I've said this a million times, want to see Novocastrians coming through. So it's good to see Dobson get some time and got himself an assist for Lockie Rose. Now, I've heard Rob Stanton, he's been asked, after games, do they work on certain areas? And he says, everything's related to games and we do it all, work on it, all that stuff. Well, my advice at the moment would be to go and work on fucking man marking in the box. I had a big crack at him last week about this, and fuck me dead. It was exactly the same thing. 2 crosses come into the box. They're more worried about getting into a zone of 3+1 than getting into a fucking man marking position. And again, the ball comes in, the defenders are right next to the attackers, and they watch the ball and they run into a zone and they leave the players. Instead of standing there and going, ball's there, player's there, I can just do this job here with the player, they forget all about the player. They run into a zone, and then when the ball comes in, like you said, Robbie, free headers, Danzaki just runs in between the defenders. They don't. It's like they don't do any work on defending at all. Defending crosses is awful. And week in, week out, we see the same errors being made of them getting, let's get into a zone. Fuck the zone. Mark the players. You can have all the talent in the world. You can have bring in the Daniel Penas and all that. But if you're not going to do the basic things on crosses and mark players, what's the point? Because
that was the Valère Germain goal last week, wasn't it?
It's week in,
that one
week
where
out,
everyone's
it's the same.
marking space.
Yeah. And it's killing them, because like you just said, Reeves, they actually do, when they have the ball, they look all right. They move the ball around. Okay, maybe they're not as flamboyant as some of the other teams and they don't have that killer player, but they actually move the ball around okay. And, Taylor makes good runs. Lockie Bayless is decent on the ball. Ben Gibson's making good runs off the ball. So they don't make it, they don't look too bad, but they make it a lot harder for themselves when they fuck up at the back all the time.
Yeah, but that's a recurrent theme in the A-League at the moment because we've got some good attacking sides, but sides, and this is, again, I think a trend we're seeing globally as well.
Yeah.
People are more intent on trying to entertain than close everything up and shut up shop at the back. We can talk about, and we will, what Steve Corica's doing at Auckland, which is he doesn't give a shit about attacking. Yeah. He just wants that thing to be solid at the back, and they are good at it, and they know what they're doing. But I think what they're lacking, because you can talk about, a Clayton Taylor who's making good runs, Gibson who's alert, and Gibson looks like a intelligent footballer who's it's good that he's getting his opportunity. But they don't have that Pena person or that someone to also attract a bit of attention from the opposition, to be that central, to free up a little bit of space. It's all one out.
Yeah.
I think, when it gets into that final third where things have to happen, you don't see that little element that you need to bring an attack together. Whether it's final ball or it's always a little bit lucky if something like the Dobson assist, it was a little ball through, but Western United defence could have dealt with that as well.
Yeah.
Before Lockie Rose had the chance.
Going through, I've gone through the last 9 years now in the coaching area, and you went through the your C and B and A and all that stuff, and there was the curriculum. And the curriculum, the most common thing you ever heard when you're in the coaching stuff was, what session are you going to do? Oh, playing out from the back. Playing out from the back. It was fucking 99% of them playing out from the back because it was an easy one to do. But also, I also think that it seems like in the game that playing out from the back is the new thing that everybody does now. Everywhere around the world, you see 100 passes in their own box before they go forward because God forbid you play a ball over the top. But while they're playing out, doing all these sessions, playing out from the back, is anyone talking about what is a defender? What are they called defenders for? Because you have to fucking defend. So do the basics. How do you man mark? What's your body shape like? Win a fucking tackle. That stuff is important as well, because scoring a goal and stopping a goal is just the same thing. So I think that shit's gone out the window. And defending crosses for the Jets is their Achilles heel at the moment. They can't do it. Fair play to Western United. They were great, and Angus Thurgate must be up there as one of the best players in the league at the moment after however many rounds we're in, because he's been fucking excellent for them.
And what about Noah Bodic? I like the way... Bodic has had to bide his time. Bodic headed off to Hoffenheim when he was a kid. He came back. It's taken him, this is his third season, I think, back in the country. And now he's starting to look a player. Is it just about confidence? And what do you like about him, Macca? Because he's a big kid that when he starts to use his body well, and maybe he's going to learn off Hero alongside him, but he's got the potential to be a solid striker.
Yeah, well, as Waddingham's going overseas. You've seen Arief Piol going. I keep waiting for the Noah Bodic news to come, because he is a good fucking player as well. And he's got the figures on the board as well, goals, assists. That's the one name I keep waiting to see is big news, transfer overseas. Noah Bodic has gone somewhere because he's been quality. And you're right. I think having that senior player next to him has helped as well. Maybe having a coach who was an attacker in Johnny as well, to give him that finer details on movements and that kind of stuff. But he'll be a big loss, because I do believe, he will go overseas and be successful.
Regs, Johnny A spoke about your mate, Angus Thurgate, last week, saying he's got all the potential to head overseas. He's not a player that we talk about in those terms. Just because, is it because of his position? Is it because he's left Newcastle for Western United? He hasn't been at Sydney or Victory, or he doesn't score 1 million goals. He pops up. He scored on the opening day of the season. Does he have what it takes to make that next move?
Yes, definitely. From a football point of view, I think he's good enough. But where does he go? This is the biggest thing at the moment, I think, for Aussie kids. Like we see, like a Sam Silvera, who's got X Factor in the A-League and does really good 2 years ago, bounces around to Middlesbrough, Portsmouth. Now he's in League One at, where's he just gone on loan to Blackpool or something like that. I don't think that's going to help in Angus Thurgate, somewhere like that, the lower leagues. I think he could be very effective in a Scotland. But again, unless it's financially really rewarding at his age, what's 3 years in Scotland going to do? I think the second he gets close to a Socceroos squad, which I think he has to be kind of close to it, I think that's when the interest proper comes. I think Western United have flown under the radar to large extents. And I think back to Macca's point, I think that's probably why a Bodic hasn't gone yet. I don't think the eyes are on Western United as much as they're on your Victories and your Sydney FCs and those places. Everyone talks about Segacic and all these boys. Oh, yeah, he's coming off the bench and making an impact here and there. But you're right. You know, a Bodic and those boys, they're probably doing it a little more consistent at the moment. But they're just not getting the pundits because I don't think they're in the limelight. I think Thurgate, I think he's definitely capable. But where does he go? I don't know what style of football really suits him, if I'm completely honest.
See, I think he would suit England. He's that box-to-box midfielder. He's everywhere. He's here. He's there. He does all the simple things. He's aggressive. He can run all day, and I just think he would suit an English style of football.
But the top 2 tiers in England now, they're all 6'4", technically good and physical beasts. The best thing Angus Thurgate's done in 3 years is shave his head. So he needs to, I think, I don't know, but I would assume he's going to get some interest. I think he could do well in Europe for sure, but I just think at the top end of England now it's so physical, and whilst he gets around the pitch and he is aggressive, you know,
it's just a size thing as well.
I think he's craftier than that.
I don't think he's Premier League. Like, I'm not talking Premier League, but I think in England, lower, like Championship down, 100% he could play in those leagues, 100%.
There's not really a player in the A-League that can walk straight into the Premier League. The Premier League can have their pick of any player in the world now. So when we're talking about a move, you're not talking about a move from the A-League into the Premier League.
Yeah, of course.
I don't think, not anymore,
No.
for sure.
No.
One thing I will say, Taylor, about that, I think having chats to people, I heard someone give me the argument the other day of why we see someone like Ariath Piol or Rafael Borge Rodriguez the season before, who headed to Coventry, was that you can be at a Melbourne City, not this year, but in the past, a Melbourne City or a Melbourne Victory or a Sydney FC, and be a young kid and not necessarily getting game time, and so not catching the eye. And if you go to a Western United here or a Perth or a Brisbane nowadays or a Mariners, whatever, maybe you sort of drop out of the narrative here in Australia. But for clubs overseas, do they give a fuck if you're playing for Melbourne Victory or Macarthur? Does a Serie B side, Brescia, do they know that Trent Bahaja left Sydney for Newcastle and that now he's playing at Newcastle? They're just seeing that he's playing every game, that he's got 6 assists. They don't know that Macarthur's not, or Adelaide's not, or whatever. They say, okay, this kid, here's his data.
You're right.
Yeah.
No, you're for sure right. But again, someone then obviously it's not just here's his stats. Let's sign him.
No, you've got to look at him and watch him. Yeah,
they watch games, and the bigger clubs that are going to pay the money, they also want to go and watch sometimes, live. And I think those bigger clubs, the atmosphere feeds into the games as well. Like you said about the Western United. Imagine if you were going to watch Angus Thurgate the other day, albeit he ripped, but you're fucking sitting in the middle of Texas, wind's blowing, and there's 2,000 people. It's like, well, is this kid ready to come into a stadium full? Don't know. Yeah. Whereas Adelaide, if you were there to watch Alagic and you show up at Cooper's Stadium and he scores the winner, you start thinking, shit.
Yeah, fair call. All right, let's move on. Next game, Western Sydney, back at home. Perhaps important detail not to be missed. Back at home after the red eye 48 hours earlier, 72, but not a big turnaround for them, coming back from Perth. Beaten by the Mariners and Macca. It looked like they just hopped off the red eye. I mean, the red eye is not easy for those that have done it. You've got the time difference. You're traveling back overnight. You're basically losing a night, but the only other option was stay the night and then you lose the entire day. literally 2 days out from a game. I don't know if they had any choice in the matter. They tried not to use it as an excuse, but it's not the first. Western United the week before, when they came back from Perth, lost to Melbourne City and never looked in the contest.
I think you sent me that message, didn't
short
you, Robbie?
turnaround. Yeah, exactly. Because that's Western United have won 6 out of 7. The one they lost was 3 days after coming back from Perth.
Yeah.
A midweek game after the trip to Perth. And this is the same for the Wanderers.
And the teams that lost on the weekend, like we'll get to Sydney as well, they just flown back from New Zealand. Melbourne City went to New Zealand and they got fucking pumped. And I think, people don't realise...
Peak A-League.
Yeah. People don't realise that the travel, how hard it can be, especially that Perth trip. Yeah. And that red-eye trip, I fucking hated it. Because the whole concept is, we get back and you can have a flight sleep on the plane, and we'll get back and you're back in the morning and you can get that day. No, hardly anyone sleeps on that flight on the way back. You end up just not sleeping for 36 hours because you're
all night
wrecked on a plane. And to be fair to West Sydney, they kept saying, because they were asked by us and our questions, and they all said we don't want to use that as an excuse. But we all know that it does have an effect because they were flat as fuck. And it was a mixture between them being really flat and the Mariners actually showing some real desperation and fight to clear 3 off the line as well. Sainsbury cleared one off the line. Steele cleared one off the line at 2-1 that Borrello, you thought for all money, was going to score and equal it up.
Yeah.
And it was just they were flat. The Mariners were decent in a case of that. They were hardworking and compact, but it was a pretty dour game up until about the 83rd minute when all of a sudden it was brought to life. In the last 10 minutes, you were like, fuck, well, that was entertaining at the end. And you thought Western Sydney were going to get something out of it, and Docker's little legs went a fucking million miles an hour as he ran the length of the field looking over his shoulder. He might not be big, but those legs fucking get going. He looks like that little Speedy Gonzalez fucking cartoon character. The legs were going a million miles an hour. But we talk about the Mariners.
It was a cool finish.
It was a great
94th
finish.
minute to put it to bed, take it around the keeper. Very cool.
Yeah, it was good. And he, as he's running away, he looked over his shoulder and summed up the situation. Said, right, I have got the time to go around the keeper now. The defender's not there and going to catch me. But we all this talk about the Mariners, they're a shadow of their former self, which they are, and they've struggled to score goals this season. They still keep picking up points and they're just on the coattails of those teams in front of them where the difference between them and the ones at the bottom, with like your Jets and your Perths and your Newcastles, is that and your Brisbanes, is that they still manage to pick up points here and there. They get a draw when they probably should have lost. They can pick up and win with their backs against the wall, and they just are still there. And I do know that they're looking in the transfer window. Whether they've got any money to get someone in, I don't know. But you can still see that there's that culture at the club of it's us versus them. We all stick together. It's a tight community. And I was only talking to someone last night about that when I was at the club, and saying that's what it felt like. It felt like the real a family, a community, the fans, the people in the club and the team. Everyone just felt like so close, and you'd fight for everyone. And you can see that that's still there now. And the young boys coming through are all part of that, and they buy into it, and it's keeping them in the fight.
Riggs, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, I thought West Sydney were disappointing, but I think you go through the Mariners squad, and it was only a matter of time, and it is only a matter of time in my mind. I think Sainsbury back in there now. I think it was it the week before or the week before that where he did the interview after the game and he just crucified all the subs. He was like, this, it's not good enough. You come on, you need to make a difference, and the performance goes down. And that tells me that there's a proper leader in that Mariners change room now that is going to start to hold people accountable. And Mikael Docker's come back into form. I thought he was exceptional the other night, and like Macca said, the speed he showed, he outran, was it Simmons, who had only been on the pitch for 15 minutes?
Yeah.
And he's a young boy who can also move. Yeah, and he just blew him away. So he's quick, but yeah, look, the Mariners are a good side. Even Qual up front, like he's a handful. He gets a yellow card, every 2 games for leaving studs in. Like, that's Matt Simon. That's Matt Simon coming out now in a young kid. That's what you're going to get each and every game from Qual. And then you got your Dockers. I'd be interested. I think they got a couple of their import signings wrong. Without mentioning names, I think there's a couple of boys that they just didn't quite get right. And I think what the Mariners have done really well in the last 3 years has been their recruitment of imports that haven't cost much. Yeah. They've bought them in for cheap. They've made a name for himself, and they've allowed him to either A, stay on okay money and do well, or B, make a move to somewhere else now, having made a name. But this time they've tried to do it again, because of budget constraints. Maybe they've just not quite got these ones right. And I think if they can change too, I think it can make a huge, huge difference.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing, though. 2 years ago, they brought in, I think Benny and Cololo was already there. They brought in Cummings. They brought in who else? But they had Kelechi John and Paul Ayongo, and they weren't working out, and they got rid of them straight away. Yeah. Like January, they were gone. Are they going to do that? Yeah. If they're going to do that, is Fei Zhao going to go? The biggest calves in the A-League? Because at the moment...
pardon my arrogance, is he your French boy? White on the left footer? Been coming on.
Is that Fei Zhao?
African.
Fei Zhao we're talking about?
A big tall one? I don't know.
No.
The big tall... Sabit Nyor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, for me, he's not doing what an import should do.
Yeah,
he's not an import. He's an Adelaide boy.
Yeah, local boy.
I think
from him.
Yeah.
There you go. My bad. Yeah. Okay, he's really good then. There you go. Macca sent me a text saying he's an import, so there, he stitched me up. No, but look, I just think that they're a couple of players short, and previously they got their imports right this year. Now he's not an import, but fuck. But I think they are a couple short there, and getting. But
they've had injury problems as well.
Yeah,
I mean, Sainsbury's only just came back, and when Sainsbury came back, that upset the apple cart at the back there. Like, clearly, Caltac had a couple of shit games, and no one's seen that from him in since he's played.
Yeah,
so. I think that was Sains's first game where he actually looked okay. I think in every game that he's come back,
but he's going to get better.
100%. I think he's just been out of the game for so long and away from Australian football. It was going to take him a few games to get in, because against Auckland, he was at fault for one of the goals. He wasn't marking. It was like he'd been training with the Jets because he didn't pick up his man on a cross. He made an error last week against Sydney where he just totally fucked the ball for that third or fourth goal, whatever it was, when Caltac gave it away as well. Yeah. He's getting into the groove. And I thought on the weekend was the first game where you started to go, he's now starting to find his groove. He's starting to read the game, his positioning, because, Riggs, when you haven't played for 3-4 months and you get thrown straight in, you're fucked, you're knackered. So even the little bit where you're like, fuck, a ball's coming, I've got to sort my feet out. Sometimes that can be difficult enough, just to try and get the right body position, and it can affect your game. I actually think you'll see Sains now go from strength to strength, and
I can't believe how big he is.
As in physical,
physically, his legs. I know he's doing that new age fucking roll your shin pads all the way down, down low. So I've never done that because my legs are so fucking skinny. But I can't get it. He looks so big and strong. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I don't remember him. I remember him having a few beers at a party here in Newcastle once, and he had a gremlin inside him, mate. He was trying to fight people, and we were all like, oh. Anyway, now he's big enough, he might actually be able to have a go.
Yeah, he's definitely changed from that real lanky, languid player when he was younger.
Yeah.
But that comes with age as well. Most people aren't like you, Reeds. They don't stay at 60 kilos and have toothpick arms and legs.
Here we go. Hey? Here we go. Yeah.
But look, Wanderers,
Mariners will come good.
Yeah, and Wanderers, this inconsistency just still there.
Well, it's at the back for them as well. I mean, they're conceding goals. They've scored a lot of goals, but I think they must have conceded just about as many now with those three from the Mariners.
Yeah, there's only Perth and Brisbane.
He's got too many personalities in that squad, and I think, without knowing Stadge personally, I think it's hard to manage him. He had Barello on the bench 2 weeks ago. Now Barello's starting. He had Milanovic on the bench this time. You got Marta's coming in and out. He didn't look super happy towards the end of the game there the other night.
Yeah.
You know, you need to
When
play
he
a
came off,
system and a
he
formation.
came on in this one.
Yeah, he came on at the end. He didn't look happy. He had a free kick that hit the wall. He didn't look stoked about that either. But
but again,
I don't know.
We go back to Macca. He was involved in everything in that last 10, 15 minutes, whatever it was.
Stadge said he reckons it's the best game he's played.
Yeah, he did. And, it sort of feels a bit weird when you're talking to Stadge now because you're like, do you continue to talk about Macca? Because it's been, that was that huge big blow up, obviously, that started with Fahid with us. And you just sort of go, oh, fuck, how long can you beat the drum of fucking Macca was good, Macca? But he came out, fair play to him, and just went, he was quality when he came on. So,
yeah. And he came back from Perth as well, like the others, where he'd started. So maybe, at 36 or whatever,
and
maybe that was a legitimate, like he's fucked after that.
Yeah. I thought
flight.
Carluccio wasn't too bad. She's coming back into the squad. They've obviously signed Alex Gersbach, and we're hearing that they're trying to sign a centre-back as well. So the club is trying to fix those defensive frailties that they've got. So only time will tell.
All right. We've got a quick who the fuck am I this week. Now, last week we didn't have one because I was too busy. Last week the answer was Matthew Delpierre, that's right, who played with Tommy Orr in the Netherlands on loan at Utrecht. Okay. Who the fuck am I? Here we go. Answer on Twitter or Instagram in your answers. Send us a message, whatever, however you want. Don't answer. We don't care. Who the fuck am I? My career straddled the NSL and the A-League, playing for various clubs in my hometown, as well as 2 other interstate NSL clubs. I represented Australia at under-23 level, but never played at the Olympics. In terms of trophies, I won the Oceania Champions League and an A-League Premiership, and I played under Ange Postecoglou. The final clue is, I am not the most famous footballer in my family. There you go. There's the, who the fuck am I? If you think you know, I won't ask you to because we don't want to give it away in case you do, but I know Macca never has any clue.
Welcome to my world, Riggs. I never fucking have a clue either.
No, I've got a few in mind.
Yep. All right. So next game up, Auckland. Now this was an important win for them back home. 3-0 over Melbourne City. Macca, this game was on while I was running around preparing for my evening game. I did watch it, but I'll go to you first on this one. It looked to me like another solid defensive performance with Guillermo Mai, a couple of defensive mistakes, but was this more Melbourne City finally having that little trough that, when you play with, as Reeves was saying earlier, when you play with 8 kids in your starting 11, sooner or later you're going to get hit with a bit of inconsistency with the travel and all of that, and up against Steve Corica's Auckland. Is that how you sum this one up?
I'm just going to pull this card out of my pocket. Here's my James Meredith card. This is the game that I haven't watched this week, guys, because I was too getting ready at Sydney Allianz Stadium while this one was on. I was parking and running in and out and doing crosses. So I've seen the highlights to this one. Some good goals. And from the highlights, it looked like City could have lost 5-0. Riggs, how did you see this one,
I think that's
mate?
pretty much.
No, I to be honest, Demon Or was playing at the same time, so I was flicking. I think you might have said on my shoulder there was a bottle of Gentleman's Jack that I also opened halfway through this game. I think. They're an English Premier League side. They're big and physical at the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Auckland.
That's it, isn't
not
it?
much gets through, and look, it wasn't. I watched more of the second half than I did the first half. It wasn't what I saw. It wasn't like Auckland were killing them. However, Melbourne City were trying to score them beautiful goals. They were trying to do it so pretty all the way through the thirds, and that made Auckland dangerous on transition because they're just so big. They'd win the ball, play into their midfield, face forward, and there was runners going. again, I just think Auckland can they win it playing this style of football? I don't know. I think maybe not, but they're going to be up and around there towards the end of the year, purely because of the way they're set up. But they have some good players. I don't know a lot of the Auckland players. They're Kiwi kids that have come through. I haven't watched a heap of them this year, but they look good. They look very, very good. Melbourne City weren't great, but they weren't.
I think that. Well, I think that's.
Half.
Yeah, and I think that's. I won't go back to Macca, but you saw Guillermo Mai, the Uruguayan, scored a great goal. He needed that as well because he hasn't been delivering. That's been their problem at the moment. They're big and strong. They've got the speedsters like Gillian, the young Kiwi kid who looks really dangerous, but just doesn't have the finished product as of yet, whether it be assists or goals. They need to get that sorted. But Nando Painaka, he must be their top scorer this year. I mean, that's got to be four for him, the central defender who just wellied that in after that broke. But again, that's mistakes from Melbourne City not managing to deal with the ball in. Max Matter with another simple finish from something that could have been dealt with beforehand, and I think
he could have had 3 in the second half.
That I think is his first start as well. Yeah. And he's another giant. He's a big, huge, mobile number 9, and like you say, Verstraete is big. The Belgian number 6 in the middle. He is a good addition to that team. They were without Sakai. The Japanese right back, their captain, with concussion. So he's a miss as well. And if you do get through all of those giants and an organisation and discipline, they've still got Alex Paulson there as well. So it's solid at the back. The question is, like you say, can they go all the way if they're not scoring? But here, I mean, 3-0 on this day, they got it.
Yeah. I did have the game on as I was running back and forth, and we go back to Gillian, and we've said it about him before that he looks all energy and he looks like he causes problems. There was one I saw where they broke through down the left, and all he had to do was square the ball to someone to tap it in, and he shot. And I can't remember what it was because I was literally walking past the screen as I went, and you just saw the striker go fucking square it up. And they're the moments where I think, okay, I know they won 3-0 and they were, they smashed the game, but you think. Defences, they say they win you your championship, so they might become premiers. But when it comes to the big game and those little decisions don't happen, and when it's 0-0 and he doesn't square it up or play that ball when he should, and it's not just him. They're the moments that I think that's what could cost you in the long run for winning a trophy. You know what I mean? In the big moments when it's tight. But gee, they are hard to break down. Only 9 goals conceded in 12 games. It's pretty decent.
They're good.
I got a message from a retired New Zealand goalkeeper asking the question of the third goal where Patrick Beach was asking for another free kick. It reminded me of the victory one where we were talking about Mashash grabbed his left shoulder and pulled his hand out when the ball went straight through his hands. Yep. That one I think was a free. This one, he got himself in a tackling match with Rogerson, I think it was, all on his own. Yeah. And never came for the ball because he had one arm wrapped around the defender. And I'm thinking, he's claiming there's a free kick there. Where the fuck are his teammates?
Well, normally,
who's taken this? He was on his own. He had a guy marking him, no defender.
Yeah. Goalkeepers are a protected species. If you're going to have that wrestle, I love wrestling, but if you're going to have the wrestle, have it before the ball comes in. So I guarantee the ref will give you a foul if you're in a wrestle, or he'll stop the action. And then there's eyes on that action before the ball's delivered. You get in a wrestle when the ball's midair with a little striker that's there to annoy you. It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, more for you.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the one we all want to talk about and everyone wants to hear about, because what the fuck happened here? Brisbane. Ruben. Mate.
Well,
I'll ask you first, Ruben. How did you prepare?
When I sat down in a cafe here in Newcastle and they started talking about it. Look, Rubes is a mate of mine, and he's all energy. He needed this. Fuck, he needed this more than anything. And they did it. And again, they got a lot of kids, but I think me and Macca spoke about it yesterday briefly. The right-hand side, Anthony Burke-Gilroy, Halloran, they did really, really well down against Joel King. Down the right. They ran at Joel King. They got him behind. They created chances the whole game. They did everything in their power in the last 10 minutes to try and lose it or draw. But look, they were good value for it. They've shown glimpses all year. I know, Brisbane fans are probably going, shut up, Reeves. But they have shown glimpses here and there all year. They were good value for their 3 points. Sydney were poor, and Sydney can't be that poor. They are too good to be that poor. That'll be one of the biggest surprises of the year if Sydney don't finish in the top 5 in my mind, because on paper, I love that Leo Senio or whatever his name is in midfield. He's a gun. Caceres is still one of my favourite players in the league to watch. We've got an academy, and tell you, if you can create a Caceres, you're absolutely cheering because he's technically so good. Holman in there. You got the disappointing one for me has been the centre back that's come back since the World Cup. Since he got in the Socceroos squad, the young boy at centre back for Sydney.
Hayden Matthews.
I don't know. He was poor against Newcastle in Newcastle. I watched the game on the hill. Super poor. Again, trying to be too pretty, playing these pretty passes. Go back to what you were good at when you first came in. Win your challenges, play simple, give it to your midfielders. Don't try and bypass lines. Get your confidence back and go for it. But, look, back to Brisbane, positives, 3 points. Negatives, Perth and Newcastle are now like, oh, shit, another one.
Are we eating humble pie here, Macca? It's the first win in 19 or whatever. I mean, it's not
start to an A-League.
Exactly. And we're not talking about a championship winning side with one win, but they did get it. They were good value for it. And, perhaps, you called it. Tell us what you made of it.
They were excellent.
We saw some good individual performances as well.
Yeah, and I think Simon said in the call at about 30-minute mark, he said if you'd switched into the A-League and didn't know who was where in the league, you'd think Brisbane were near the top and Sydney were down the bottom. That's how bad it was for Sydney at the start. I reckon we were 7 minutes into the game and Uffy had fucking exploded. He was doing a full-on Carl Viet. He turned around to his bench and just was like, fucking warm up, all ears go. He was going absolutely fucking apeshit because they were terrible. And to be fair, that Klein in midfield was fucking awesome. He was buzzing about and combining with Burke Gilroy and Halloran on the right. Joel King was having an absolute fucking beast of a game. He was getting absolutely spun in circles. He didn't know where he was coming or going, and he managed to jag a goal. It sort of just fell at his feet, and he fucking poked it in. Apart from that, they were loving going down that right-hand side. I think they were at one stage, it was 70% of their attacks went down the side, their right-hand side, Brisbane, and they just kept doing it. And from the first minute, I think it was Halloran that ran in behind him and burnt him for pace, and that was like they all went, yeah, just keep going there. And they were good. Henry Hall got his goal. Everyone was talking about him coming back, and he was in the right place, banged one in. Across the board, they were really, really good. Jay O'Shea was getting into position, got himself a couple of assists. He was controlling the play, bouncing it around. To be fair, at the back too, Billity and Harrington, they were quality. And then, like Reed said, at the end, they were like, we've come this far, let's make it exciting. Fuck, throw some goals in at the back. And all of a sudden you were like, there's no fucking way.
But that's understandable, isn't it? That's understandable when you haven't won a game all season. You're midway through and you're conceding shit goals and you suddenly think, it's like squeaky bum.
Yeah.
Big time.
And to be fair to Sydney, like he threw everything at him, and Courtney Perkins, as soon as Jack Hingett come on, they just hung a ball on top of him, and Courtney Perkins, who's about 2.5 foot taller than him, just monstered him and scored. And you thought, honestly, you felt like Sydney were going to get that equaliser, and they were going to be like, oh, fuck, poor old Ruben. because there was so much talk about him losing his job, or will he lose his job, or what's going on. He had the backing of Kaz Patafta again, which is it's the second one they've come out and backed him, and that's usually a bad sign in football. yeah, we back him with the caveat of, but all depends on results and
for the moment,
and it can change very quickly in football. So you were all like, everyone was like, "Fuck, he's in major trouble," and I think we all thought they were going to lose against Sydney, and it was going to be that. But fair play to them. They played well. They got a result, and Sydney were fucking awful, to sum it up.
Now, gentlemen, do we think, and we have to talk about this because this is, as you say, Macca, this is what all the talk is, and there's been so much talk about it. We all thought Ruben was going to stay just because the owners had said, there's no money, we're not paying anyone out. To the Kazakhs, you signed him. You've been through 4 coaches in a season. There's no money to pay him out, so you stuck with him. And we all thought, okay, so Brisbane are going to have Ruben there. Ruben was like, I'm the man. I'm here for the job. I'm calm. I know that this is. And then suddenly the whole thing flipped, and it was like, shit. They've got a bye coming up, or their game against Adelaide next weekend has been moved because of monster trucks at Suncorp. They're going to have a 2-week gap where they could perhaps bring someone in. There was talk that this is going to happen if they lose. Do we expect Ruben to stay now? Is that the win that showed that there was enough spirit in this team? Was that enough in that win to suggest that they've turned the corner?
No. One win doesn't make a season. If they back that up now in the next few weeks with another couple of wins, and all of a sudden, you got 3 wins out of 4 games and no losses, all of a sudden it might be a case of, oh, okay, this is all the stuff they're talking about, and we can say, oh, well, it only took 1 transfer window, not 3. But 1 win doesn't change it. Yeah, okay, no one expected it, and they came up against the Sydney side. And I'm not taking anything away from the way they played, because they played very, very well for about 80 minutes. But they came up against a Sydney team that the team were fucking awful. But they need to back that up again in their next game. If they get a win next week.
But can you change it now then? Because this was the window. Apart from the next international break in March, do they then go to that and say, okay, let's go to the next international break where we can have 3 weeks?
No, they can change whenever they want. Managers get sacked all the time. If they lose the next 2 games and it's fucking back to same old story, why can't they just, if they've turned around and gone, we do have money now and this just can't go on, because you go on socials, the fans just fucking, they're over it. They just want a change.
Yeah.
And I think I've said here before, I think they should go with Queensland coaches. Yeah. Head coach, assistant coach, youth team coach, they should all be Queenslanders to show that, all right, we don't have much money, but we've got people here who are invested and live and know the local community. And will do everything for it. Not saying that the coaches there aren't, but you have that little bit more when it's your community you're in. That's what I think they should.
But is that the same everywhere then, Macca? Should it be a coastie on the Central Coast and Novocastrian in Newcastle and Adelaide? I mean, Adelaide does have only all Adelaide.
Adelaide does pretty well, don't they?
But
they keep producing fucking kids.
Yeah,
and they
exactly. But it's not. But
knows the
are you saying? But are you saying that Brisbane need it now because Brisbane?
I think have
lost that soul.
Yeah, correct.
And they need to get that back more than perhaps another club where they can bring in a foreigner.
Correct.
Or
they need to get back to their community. And like you say, the circumstances are they're saying they don't have any money to get a new coach. All right. So if you're gonna or they don't have any money, full stop. So if they're going to spend not much money, well, this is who we are. We're going to be battling and we're going to be fighting to try and make finals at best. Well, why wouldn't you have people in there who understand your community? Give them the opportunity. Carl at Adelaide, you mentioned him. He worked in the youth space there for years before he worked up. There's got to be Queensland coaches that are experienced who have been working around that, they've given the opportunity. They're going to get that experience in the A-League by giving them the opportunity. It's the same as a player. And I just think the Queensland community would want to they might turn around and tell me I'm wrong, but I think they've got to get back to the community and have one of their own there where the club is at this point in time. I don't think that should be all the time. It's always the right person for the job, but at this moment in time, that's what I feel. If they're going to make that change, because don't forget, Ruben's still there.
Yeah. Anything to add, Reeves?
Oh, yeah. Again, I don't know if Ruben stays or goes or whatever, that's at the club's discretion, right? Chris Coyne is sitting beside him on the bench. I think, to Macca's point, I agree. There needs to be a connection back with the community. I don't think it needs to be a head coach. But I think in this day and age, head coaches have to have enough balls to back what they're doing and trust that no one on their staff is going behind their back. But you need to bring someone in. Maybe it's someone that doesn't say yes to everything. And I've had this qualm with plenty of coaches over the years. Arthur Pappas, as an example. You fill your staff with people that just say yes to you. Everything you say, your assistant coaches call you fucking boss and say yes to everything you say. You're never going to get challenged. You're never going to grow. I don't know. Does Rubes have a second assistant that's a local? You mentioned Carl Viet. When I was in Adelaide, Carl Viet was running the NTC, like all the young kids. So Alagich, Iran Kunda, this young centre back, all these boys, they were in the system. He knew who they were. He knew what the pathway was. Now when he's got there, he's brought them up. He knows he can trust them. He's worked with them and known them for long enough. Yeah, same as Monty did. To same as what Newcastle now, again, money restraints. But
yeah,
Damien Zane has to be in and around the first team now for the next few years, because when Rob Stanton decides he wants to move on, or when the club decides Rob Stanton moves on, whether it's in 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, Damien Zane has to be next because he's been in. He knows them. He trusts them. But again, does a Rob Stanton, because Damien Zane is a strong personality, does Rob trust him? Does he think, oh, he's going to talk bad? Well, Carl Viet's brought in Mark Milligan. They never played together. That's a bold fucking move. Mark Milligan is a personality. He brought him in without really knowing him, sat him beside him on the bench, mentored him, but then still had your Damien Morris and people like that who still know the local community. I hope Rubes has someone like that in and around him. I hope Alan Stajic has someone in and around him. Melbourne Victory, that's where in my mind, that's where they've fucked up. They've moved Kisnorbo on, who left early for whatever reason, but who's been connected with your youth academy for the last 3 years that know who the next kids are? Are they there? Because Arthur Dillis has just arrived. So now you're rebuilding. You get away from your academy and your structures and you run a massive risk, and you can blame all your transfer windows you fucking want. You create your own players. It's Australian football. You don't get relegated if you have 1 or 2 bad years. But if you invest in the kids and have 5 bad years, at least they're your kids. You'll sell them. You'll make some money. You fucking open windows and start bringing people in and still fail. You've fucking done nothing.
Yeah. I mean, that's the same for any club anywhere around the world. You are in a results-based thing. The first team can be a mess. The results can be bad. You can have a bad transfer window. You can bring in the wrong players. But everything that's happening behind the scenes has to be stability, continuity, building, and laying foundations so that, what happens in the shop window can be good or bad. And you hope it's as good as possible. But everything behind that has to be rock solid. And that's another thing. Like Ruben said it again in the press conference after Sydney. He says, people don't know, but this club behind the scenes is just an absolute mess.
We do know.
No
We've
club
known that
should
for
ever
fucking
be.
ages.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we've known that for a long time. But Victory, where are the kids coming through at Victory? There have been a few, but nothing. Can you imagine if Victory were in this situation that Western United find themselves in, or Melbourne City, where a first 11 is gone and they've got to bring through these kids? And Victory have brought through, like a Franco Lino or a Josh and Sarah played again yesterday, but they're already 20 plus. They're not the 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and where they're not getting their chance. There's always talk Menelau, your other boy Luka College, Jurakovic, these kids that are coming through. Well, Jurakovic is at City now, but Victory kids that we're not seeing them. We're not seeing them get their opportunity.
And like we talk about Adelaide, look at Western United. Diogo Ferreira was in the community as an academy coach. He came into the Western United Academy. He now sits on the bench.
Andrew
it's not,
Durante was as well. I think he was player development there as well and working across every department at the club.
100%. So you need if you're going to have an academy, do it right, and nurture them and give them an opportunity. Like the boy that I thought was an import, he's from Adelaide. The boy that played centre back for Brisbane the other day, I'm pretty sure he's from Adelaide too, right? Not Harrington, the other boy. Billity. Pretty sure he was in Adelaide at one point. Like as a kid,
Billity,
I remember his name.
I've seen Billity.
All these kids, they came through an environment, and now look where they are. They're all thriving. You got to embrace it, or you rest it. We don't have Arab owners that are going to put their hand in their pocket for the next 50 years.
Yeah. All right, time to shatter stat, courtesy of our man Andy Howe, who does the deep dive every week. And I remembered I was chatting to someone who was saying was incredible the stat you gave us about all the players beginning with M or whatever. And Andy popped up again after this game on Twitter, and so I asked him if he could dive a little bit deeper into it, which of course he just loves a stat, so he has done that on our behalf. So this is what Andy sent through this morning. I'm not sure if he slept all night working all this out. So high scoring H's. On Saturday, Ben Halloran, Henry Hoare and Lucas Harrington scored for Brisbane Roar against Sydney. This was the first time 3 players with the same surname initial scored for the same team in the A-League since Carlos Hernandez, Jason Hicks and Stein Heisegams scored for Wellington Phoenix against Newcastle in 2014. However, including first name initials, Brisbane had 4 H's, courtesy of Henry Hoare. This is a first 4 for H's in Australian National League history going back to 1977, and the first 4 for any letter since 2016 when Costa Barbarouses, Ollie Bozanic and Bessart Berisha did it for the Bees for Melbourne Victory in a game for Melbourne Victory in 2016. Not long earlier, Danny De Silva and Dino Julbic scored in the same game for Perth Glory, 4 Ds in that one for you alliteration freaks. And for a new A-League record of the most first and second name initials for scorers, we only needed Hossein Billity or Jack Hingett to get on the score sheet for Brisbane on Saturday, which would have made 5 H's. We can all look forward to cheering on, hopefully, this season. Guillermo Mai, Nida Moreno, Francois Marley and Max Mata all getting on the score sheet for Auckland, perhaps, and we will have a new record. Or Alex Badalato, Alex Bonatig, Josh Brillante, Bojidar Kraev and Brandon Borello to all score for the Wanderers, and we will have a new record. There you go. How good is Andy Howe?
Got some spare time.
Does he talk to his wife? Does he have a wife?
Did you say life or wife?
Both. Andy doesn't need that. He has A-League stats.
Exactly. Exactly.
I like him. He's good.
All right. And he's an Adelaide boy these days. Sydney sider originally. Time in Canberra where I met him 35 years ago or so. And now Adelaide based. Okay, last game of the round. And it was a cracker. Adelaide versus Melbourne Victory, the original rivalry game. 3-2. We've already spoken about it in bits and pieces. To run through it quickly. Oh, interesting stat that I said in comms. Stephen Mork was the only Adelaide player, along with Kitto, to ever have scored against Melbourne Victory in this Adelaide squad. And Kitto did it for Newcastle. I think it was in that 2013-14 season. So Mork was the only one with any experience of scoring in a Falami had actually, but the other way around. He'd done it for Victory. A winner. But Mork scored again. Then there was the own goal from Miranda just before half-time after Ryan Teague had given Victory the league. Nice goal from Teague as well. Then Santos brought it all level midway through the second half, only, as we mentioned, for Ethan Alagic to get the win. But, we'll go to you first, Regs, because you played for Adelaide. You know what Coopers is like when it's packed like that, when there's, how it can be in a big game against... First of all, we know the original rivalry is the big game. What is it for Adelaide? It's their biggest game on the calendar, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. The fans don't like each other. The cities don't like each other.
The states.
The states. It just screams hatred, and it's excellent. It's come from the A-League's got 4/5 of fuck all history, but it's come from the history of the A-League. You know, it started with the Muscat and Cozzy stuff. It started with the 5-0 grand final, and it's gone through the years of, you know, you bring a Barisha in and you got characters like him and Isais who everyone hates every time they play against them. They're two clubs that don't like each other, but I think deep down there's a massive amount of respect for each club. I think Adelaide have done so much right for so long now. They're so consistent. They never seem to have down periods. I think they had one or two bad ones over the last 15 years, but apart from that, they're always up there. They're always competitive, and they're always up for an original rivalry. I remember my first one in Adelaide. I remember going out for a drink after the game. We won 2-1, and I remember there was a massive brawl in the middle of the game. We scored, and Adelaide fans ran behind the goals towards the corner. Well, Victory fans didn't like that and just started swinging, and it was on. But it's good, you know. It's got that little bit of ethnicity about it, both cities, and that's what, in my mind, is going to take the A-League forward. More ethnics, more flares, more fights, and more passion like they give us.
More CCs.
More CCs. Crazy cunts.
There's not.
We set the tone.
There's
it.
never a dull one, is there, though, Reeves? It's fucking always exciting because you spoke about earlier,
always.
right? You go to Western United's Iron Bark Fields and the atmosphere, it's, you know, there's not much going on. These games always have a fucking atmosphere. There's always a big travelling contingent. There was a full sellout crowd on Tuesday.
Yeah, 4 bays.
Yeah. It was, and we all know what Coopers is like. It's a fucking perfect football stadium. You know, imagine if it had a roof on it as well, it'd be fucking off the chain. But it's just everything's set up perfectly for it. Perfect football facility. Two teams that hate each other. Two teams that always have a philosophy of playing attacking, open football that they want to go and entertain. It has all the elements. It's fucking unreal, and you can never take your eyes off it because it just swings one way, then the other, and it didn't disappoint again.
No.
Is this one, just to continue on this rivalry, because what Reegs just said, which I think is a really important point, is that deep down, underneath all the layers of banter and, you know, hatred, CCs, is the respect between the two clubs. And deep down inside, the fans and the players share that respect for the opponent as well. Is that something that, you know, maybe when Victory take on Melbourne City, that's why the Melbourne derby isn't yet at the level perhaps of the Sydney derby, because there's something in it, like you say, in the hours leading up to the game, the energy is building and you can feel that. And I imagine you can feel that as a player, but that's the feeling you get when you're a fan going to a game or even about to commentate, where you know you can't go wrong. It's like doing the grand final because you know it's a big game, and every game is like a grand final. And that's so enjoyable to be a part of. And that's why the Victory fans go there. That's why they travel there, because they know no matter what happens, they've got that feeling. That energy is building from the moment they arrive in the city, that coming to this moment. That's what football's about.
There's always, I don't know if it's changed more recently, there was always a perception, even when you were at Adelaide and when I was at Newcastle as well. Victory for me was always the biggest club.
Yeah.
Victory, Sydney FC, Melbourne Victory have come in with the money, right? And they've had success. But it was always, for me, Victory and Sydney were the biggest two clubs. When I was at Adelaide, Victory was still the biggest club. Everyone knew that. But the one thing we had in Adelaide was we had the stadium and the support. That stadium, like Macca said, there is no better atmosphere. 14,000 there the other night. But if that crowd was only 9,000, it'd still feel the same. Like it's a boutique stadium, and, you know, all these people we go back to critique in the A-League. If you watched that game, you wouldn't critique it. You'd say it was quality. Yeah. And that's just because of the stadium. Now, once you're in Adelaide United, there's plenty that goes wrong behind the scenes. They're not the most well-oiled office staff, and they've got issues and all that. But match day, public perception, atmosphere, fans, love the team, good results, club's flying. Well, they're fucking not. Yeah. They're not. Well, they won't. They might be now. They've sold Craig Goodwin like 12 times. They've made like 18 million off one fucking player. He'll come back. He'll be back next year. You watch. I'll fucking sell him again. Honestly, him and Riley McGree have made the club like $28 million off the two of them, and they've been sold 4 times. But yeah, like they're again, it's such a tight-knit community in Adelaide. They keep it close. They keep their issues internally. They don't air their laundry, but they make sure that the community get to that stadium and support them. They do a really, really good job, you know, but that stadium is perfect for them. If they don't have Cooper Stadium and they have to play out of Adelaide Oval, they're a fucking basket case like a lot of other clubs as soon as they start to get rocky. But because it gets rocky there, but there's still 9,000 instead of 14, it's still a phenomenal place to play football.
Okay, Macca, the game itself. Victory went ahead early. Victory did all their classic, we are Melbourne Victory, we are great in the first half. Mashash and Arzani are awesome when we combine. Valadon and Teague making runs. We're an unstoppable side. Half-time. What's going on?
Soft underbelly.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. The way they started the game, you thought, shit, Adelaide are going to get rocked here because they did look good. Mashash, I don't know what to add to what you just said because it feels like we could press record on some of our times we've talked about Melbourne Victory in the past because we say the same thing. They look exciting. They look like they have possession and they create all these things, but they don't have any cut and thrust at the end of it. You know, the fact that they went.
Teague's their top scorer now. Ryan Teague's top scorer, who's only got 1 goal before in the history of the A-League, I think.
It just
he's only played one of the season, but last year, yeah.
You know, Regs touched on it, and we touched on it last week about the manager. I think they need a strong, big figurehead who comes with experience. You know, what's that? 6 games now without a win?
7, I think, isn't it? 6?
I think it's 6. 6 games. Oh, 7 is it? 6 games. Well, Dilla's been there 6 games, I think. 6 games and they haven't won.
Yeah.
So you've got to be looking at, you know, lots of rumours around that he might already have a contract, but they're waiting for them to win a game to announce it. They're still waiting. But
I don't think that's even rumours now. I think everyone's accepted that's pretty much
that's what's happening.
Accepted.
Yeah.
6 games.
Know whether they're bringing that new. Well,
there's a rumour they might announce it. That's the rumour now.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to say about Victory that we haven't already said. It's the same old story. Lots of huff and puff and no real fucking blowing the house down. But talking about Adelaide, Stefan Mork's been fantastic this year again. Kikianis at the back, he was a fucking standout, both in defence and we heard Bruce Jitte talking about his playing out from the back when he spoke to the TD or the football director or whatever he is, and how thrilled they are with the way he can play out from the back. But he's a defender who also goes and wins his fucking headers, wins his tackles, gets his body in there and does all that side of the game as well. And you can see why they locked him down.
The boy next to him is good though. That Friends.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
He's fucking
very
good.
You've got one experienced player and one young player who you can see has got a really high ceiling. So he brings the best out of him as well. They just look good, don't they? And to roll it around at the end and get Ethan Alligatch scoring the winner, like we said earlier at the start.
It could have been any of 6 players at the end.
Yeah, well,
they had about 4 players arriving on the edge of the box, all who was going to get there first to have the crack.
And you see the Victory defence, they all run.
All go.
There's about 6 of them to the inside the 6-yard box, and everyone just no one thinks about sticking on the penalty spot or where the players are. They all just run back to cover. But it was a story that was written for a long time. For like we said earlier about that photo with him with his shirt on as a kid, for him to get the winner in their biggest game, their biggest rival, and we talk about meaning it for someone. Well, it meant it for him, didn't it?
Yeah, that was absolutely peak A-League in every positive sense of the cranky cunt world that we live in. And I rated it very highly. Good news is we get to do it all again on Wednesday. Macca, the dream team, back together. We'll have to keep a lid on that one with the top of the table, Adelaide v Auckland. But before then, tonight, and if you're listening to this game's probably already happened, so we won't go into much depth. Macarthur versus the Knicks. Very quickly, Taylor, in 25 words or less, what do you reckon could happen in this one? Basically, it's Macarthur at home against the Knicks, who will, in all likelihood, try and score an own goal to get a point out of this.
My money would be on Macarthur. I think they're kind of on a bit of a high. They've had a decent start to the season. I expect them to win and hang around in that top sort of 5 and keep pressure on at the top. I think the Knicks need to freshen up. I think they're going to they're not as dangerous and as exciting as they were last year, unfortunately.
Yeah. Macca?
Agreed.
Yep. Ditto. All right. That was exciting. Next game. Next game is, as we said, me and Macca on commentary on Wednesday night. So it's still in 25 words or less, Macca. But this one, mouth-watering, top of the table, Adelaide at home to Auckland. I don't know if we're going to see as many travelling supporters from Auckland. But, and this was nice about A-League as well. On Friday, Western United went level top of the table. Saturday, Melbourne City went top of the table. Then Auckland went top of the table. And then Adelaide went top of the table, all on the same day.
What's not the fucking
And
love?
tonight, Macarthur can move, 3 points behind as well. And so the top 5 will be covered in 3 points, as the CC said off the top of the show. It is brilliant. So Macca, Adelaide v Auckland.
Yep. It'll be another banger, I reckon. Pretty simple. They're riding high, both of them. The crowd was epic at Auckland as well on the weekend. Let's not forget to mention that. Yeah. But I just think at home, I think the Adelaide will be too good with the crowd behind them. They'll get 9,000, 10,000 there again, and it'll be rocking, and they'll play great football. And Jovanovic or Goodwin will score a goal, and it'll be great.
Taylor, on what we were discussing more, because Macca didn't watch it, Auckland being big, strong fuckers, like you said, like basically an EPL side in the A-League compared to other A-League sides. Mork is small. Yes, he's a bundle of energy. Yes, he gets under your skin. Zach Clough didn't have his best game in the original rivalry. He's only small as well. Ethan Alagich is a big boy, but he's only a kid. Can they be bullied at home? Who's going to stand up? Do they have that steel?
I think Auckland will set up deep. My natural instinct is they'll probably be quite defensive away from home and try and take away the speed of a lot of those players. I think Kiddo will then give you width, and so will Perez.
Yeah.
And whilst he's not a big body, Archie Goodwin has what you can't coach, and that's instinct in the box. And albeit the big centre-backs might be able to contain him if it is a battle 1v1, in the box, he's dangerous. And I think Adelaide will be too good. But in saying that, that'll then mean at times Adelaide may get frustrated and take some risks out wide and with fullbacks and things like that, which can leave them vulnerable to counter-attacks. And Auckland do have speed through the boys we spoke about earlier. So it'll be an arm wrestle. It'll be a good battle. Corica's been around a long time. He knows the game. But in Adelaide, I'm back in Adelaide too.
Good stuff. All right, that'll do us. It's been too long already. I've had one internet shat itself worse than a shatter stat. So we're back here to wrap up. Thank you. I enjoyed the chat. It was good A-League chat. Macca, what do you reckon?
Well, I enjoyed it, mate. I just have to talk to this guy every fucking day. So first and last time he's coming on.
Loves it. I've really enjoyed it, guys. Yeah, I did, because we talked about Angus Thurgate. I used to coach Angus when he was young. We talked about Will Dobson. I've coached Will Dobson for the last 2 years, so I'm plugging myself now. But yeah, it's going really good. I love it.
We didn't mention Ben Van Dawson. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
have
no,
him?
I haven't coached him. No, I haven't coached him.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's why. Poor old Ben.
Yeah. Hopefully he gets on soon.
Cheers,
All right.
mates.
Good stuff. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for joining
Thanks,
us. Thank you,
guys.
everyone, for listening. Don't forget, enjoy the A-League. Get into it. Call it peak as long as you're rating it. And that's it. Be a CC. From one CC to 2 other CCs. And the rest of all you CCs out there, we'll speak to you next week.
Latest.
Ciao.